All right, go ahead, pull up a chair, have a seat, get the popcorn out. Show's about to get started. And one of the things I want to talk about real quick is that the way you do what you do, if you train to build muscle, should be completely different if you are or if you're not on steroids. Now, a lot of people seem to think that the only difference between being on steroids and not being on steroids is the steroids. They don't understand that it changes the game completely. It's not a level playing field. And just because you can do something that someone on steroids is doing, in that you can go to a building called the gym, you can spend as many hours inside that building as someone on steroids, you can do as many sets as someone on steroids, and you can do as many reps as someone on steroids. Does that mean you should, though? So I'm going to explain this in a way that anybody can understand it, because steroids changes your why. The reason you're going to the gym in the first place. And if the reason that you're going in the first place is different, then the way you do what you do should be different as well. So let me explain this in a way that anybody can understand it, because a lot of people simply don't get it. They think the only difference between being on steroids and not is the steroids itself. They think that because they can do something that someone on steroids is doing, that they should, because if they want to get results, they got to do the same thing as the guy who's actually getting results. But being on steroids changes the game. Your purpose for going to the gym is completely different. When you're natural, your purpose for going to the gym, if you train to build muscle, is to trigger protein synthesis, to put your body into an anabolic state because it's not currently in an anabolic state. When you're on steroids, you're currently in an anabolic state. So your entire purpose when you go to the gym is completely different. Your purpose is to drive nutrients to the muscle, to take advantage of the elevated protein synthesis. So because your purpose is completely different, the way you do what you do should be different as well. But you get these YouTube champions like Cali Muscle and Rich Piana and Mike Rashid and CT Fletcher recommending these marathon workouts and saying things like, how bad do you want it? And it's still your motherfucking set. Like, they'll say things like the steroids only help a little bit, but if you want to be as successful as them, you got to do the same things they're doing. Well, they don't understand what the fuck they're talking about. Because if you're not on steroids and you do that shit, elevate cortisol, deplete glycogen, activate expression of myostatin, activate AMPK, basically just putting your body into an anti-anabolic state. So your whole purpose for going to the gym in the first place was to put your body into an anabolic state, but because of the way you did what you did, you put your body into an anti-anabolic state. Your purpose was to trigger protein synthesis, and what you did killed the trigger. When you're on steroids, you don't have to worry about that. You don't have to worry about cortisol, because the juice you're taking is going to counterbalance that. You don't have to worry about depleting glycogen, activating AMPK, because you're storing more glycogen, your capacity to deplete glycogen is less, and your capacity to replenish is greater. Therefore, it should influence the way you're doing what you do. If you're not on steroids, you got to be more calculated with the decisions that you're making. Just because you can physically do something doesn't mean it's in your best interest, unless, of course, you're trying to prove to yourself that you physically can do it. But if you want to build muscle, the formula is very simple. You want to trigger protein synthesis as often as possible without overworking your capacity to recover. Therefore, you want to limit excessively damaging your muscles so that you can train more frequently, because if you can't recover from your workouts, you can't train as frequently. The more frequently you train, the more frequently you stimulate the trigger and put your body into an anabolic state. You want to limit elevating cortisol and depleting glycogen. When you're on steroids, you want to get results. You know what the fucking formula is? Do whatever the fuck you want. Do whatever the fuck you want. Do as much work as you can. Lift light weights. Pump the muscles. Burn as much glycogen as you can. It's only going to facilitate your purpose for going to the gym in the first place. Take your set to failure. Take your set beyond failure. Don't worry about training frequently. You don't need to frequently stimulate the trigger since it's always fucking on. You can train a muscle once every 2 weeks if you wanted to. And people don't understand this. They seem to think that the only difference between being on steroids and not being on steroids is the steroids. The training should be the same. You want to get results, you got to do the same thing. You got to work hard. It doesn't fucking work like that. Steroids changes the game, and it's not an even playing field. When you understand why you're going to the gym, what your purpose is, it should influence the way you do what you do. Hopefully that helps with your understanding. You like the information, share it. Click the fucking button at the bottom of the screen you're looking at. Subscribe to the channel. Support me. And I'm going to keep on fucking bringing it.